Very good morning to all you ladies and gentlemen. Pleasure to have a very, very distinguished set of panelists here to be able to deliberate upon purpose in retail and building leadership success in retail. Uh, when we think of purpose, I just want some response from the audience in terms of what do you believe purpose means? What is your understanding of purpose? Then we can kind of fashion the rest of the discussion accordingly. Suhail, any thoughts on purpose? Top line, bottom line. So he means profitability is purpose of business. Any other comments on purpose of business? What do you think purpose means? He one person 100% agrees with Suhail.
Add to that, collective growth.
And
100% agree with him. And the other thing I would like to add, just in the spirit of the conference, is collective growth and collective learning.
collective growth and collective learning. So from an organizational perspective, when you think of a retail organization's perspective, you're talking about a very important, which is making sure you make money. The second, you're talking about growth, continuous growth over a period of time, learning. Any other definitions of purpose? What should you do for the customer? What should you do for the community? What should you do for your suppliers? Anything else? Making whose lives? Customers or suppliers? Customers' lives comfortable.
Yeah, in the
Yeah.
process of our business.
Sunil has also got a comment.
Yeah, Bijou, happy morning. I think let individual good should be the byproduct of serving the larger good. My good should be the byproduct in serving the larger good.
Ah, okay. So in serving society at large, society benefits, you also benefit. That's what you meant. Great. Lovely. So now we've got some framework in which to be able to fashion the rest of our 37 minutes on this panel discussion. And going to you, Venkat, and I think this question is largely about, when we think of the purpose of the business and we think of customers, profit, revenues, all these come from customers. And when you think of customers and understand what customers want, keeping a close eye to be able to figure out where's the market going, what do customers seek, what are you offering, what more should you offer. All that requires not just walking around and speaking to a few, but a very organized process. So what is the kind of process that you follow to ensure that you're actually serving your customers, you're understanding and assessing their needs?
Bijou, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I want to start with the point that you were making to the audience on purpose. If we can make a difference to our stakeholders, starting with, of course, customers. If you're not relevant to your customers, you don't make a difference to everybody else, really speaking. And in some ways, it connects back into saying, how do you make a difference which is relevant, which is interesting for the customers if you're not constantly keeping a tab on what is relevant to them? And I so like, what Ashwin spoke about earlier this morning. In terms of change, if we do not change and constantly be relevant to customers, we cease to be relevant and we can't make a difference. On the specific point, in the kind of industry that we are in, Bijou, at least predominantly the fashion side of the business, there are multiple streams of input that we probably need to be open to. And many of the speakers already this morning have mentioned technology is a big part, so I think it is a very important part. Yet, I think the moment you touch the creative side, the kind of people that we surround ourselves with, in terms of bringing real newness to the table, I guess is very important, because I want to build on that a tidbit. The more we copy, the less we are relevant. And if we are all very similar, and then we say we're going to be very significantly different in terms of outcomes, that's not going to be very logical in the first place. So there is reason to believe that the market is large enough for all of us, and we want to be at some level relevant globally, not because you want to go and sell a lot of stuff outside India, because India itself is a big damn market. But India is getting very global in the way the consumers are thinking about their aspirations, their consumption patterns. So possibly we need more pods of presence outside India so that we can learn beyond the shores so that we can make a difference to our customers. So 2-3 points. One, multiple streams of input. Two, I think the intent itself should be about being different, not necessarily being akin to a whole bunch of other players, because different players bring different things to the table. And third, I do think there are asymmetric choices to be made in terms of how we organize ourselves.
Could you just dwell on the last, which is the asymmetric choices?
So for instance, design studios outside India in the right markets are shake you up in terms of your comfort zone. And yes, it means employing very different type of creative talent that brings thoughts to the table. And all of it may not be immediately relevant. It doesn't make difference to sales and revenues. I think one of our colleagues mentioned that revenues and profits are all that matters. And I think it is completely true. But if it's not only revenues and profits tomorrow morning, but it's also revenues and profit 2 and 3 years and 5 years from now. So that's one thought. The other piece is cold use of technology needs to be married with the warm use of creative intelligence and sense, which probably is much more interesting for the customer because she's looking for something which is different and something which is changing as opposed to something which she was used to liking in the past.
Okay, great. Ashwin, that's, I think, a great point to segue to Reliance Retail. Reliance Retail has got so many formats. And because it's got so many formats between food and fashion and electronics and footwear and domestic and international and several things like this, it's got several streams of information flowing from all these different businesses. And in fact, if you want to develop what you might define as a retail consumer index, which is both a reflection of retail as well as a reflection of the way consumers are thinking and behaving, then there's no better organization than Reliance Retail to be able to help evolve something like that. So what is the back end of the organization which actually understands data coming from the front end of the organization and translating all of that data into consumer insights, which then help the entire organization?
So the data is coming from the customer's consumption, the family's consumption, and also from understanding where the customer is basically. So it is about geographical understanding, it is about individual customers understanding, it is about individual customer. When we look at the spending becomes a very important aspect and what they are buying. But really speaking, the index kind of a thing, if somebody were to say, then it is generalized in terms of not individual customers, but it is a pattern what is happening in terms of overall, a particular town, a particular geography, a catchment, a region. All of that gets tabulated into more of what you call generalized understanding of what is happening over there, and you do right according to that. But largely, I think, the understanding the trend and understanding what is happening, what will happen, predicting that, looking at international markets, looking at where things are going. That is very important so that you are right ahead of the time for the customer, or at least at the right time, right season, right kind of the occasion. If you're talking about the festive, then you have to be ready before the festive, right? I mean, you can't start thinking after. So lots of that learning is already there, and specific preferences are really what keep changing and shaping it actually. So there are two aspects to it. The individual customer, so everybody has gone really now to the individual customer. You're trying to understand the repeat shopping, trying to understand individual customers' behavior, and at the same time you have to have a general answer so that also you are right in terms of the overall picture and you are right with the right dimensioning of what you are doing in the overall picture. So both the answers are really required to be studied, and index is really from a macro perspective, and individual customer's understanding will be tying in into that where that customer fits in. If you are looking at an individual customer, I give an example of groceries. The customer who is buying an iPhone may be really a customer who is really important, really will spend big. But do I understand that customer from that perspective? Do I understand that customer individually will be looking at epigamia, curd or yogurt or a better answer in spending? The answer may not be the answer because that customer never buys groceries. It is their house help who buys the groceries for them, right? So it is that understanding of the household, understanding of really the who is going to be the relevant customer at different points of time is what we keep constantly doing and getting it right for our business predictions and things like that.
Sure, thank you. So if I were to kind of summarize what you said on the one hand, we look at customers as individuals, which gives us an understanding of how their shopping basket, both by size and by categories, etc., those change over a time, so that you can address those specifically. And then also, when you look at it at a much broader level, you might suddenly believe that, yeah, UP in the last quarter hasn't done as well as Gujarat has, which could be the other way of also looking at the same stream of data which is coming in. Kulin, in your case, you all are both in the textiles fabrics business and also in the garments business, which means that there has to be two levels of understanding. One as at the fabric level, what is it that you need to be able to make and serve the world market, and the second at the garment level as to what is it that you need to actually design in order to serve the domestic market. So how do you all go about this in the apparel category?
I think one of the big things that we have to realize is that the fashion supply chain globally is transforming very fast. It used to be a much slower supply chain. Just the entire concept to shelf in fashion used to largely be a 9 to 12 month exercise. And that allowed the production cycle to be a 90 to 120 day production cycle. But as brands are moving more and more to a 90 to 120 day concept to shelf, you know, on the supply chain, you have to figure out ways to be much faster and much more responsive. So we are seeing that the way the manufacturing side and the brand side is coming closer together. The way planning and data sharing is done in a differentiated way. The way planning of fabric or pre-planning of fabric and platforming is done. All of these things are what are the transformations that are allowing for velocity. Because in my opinion, we have to constantly drive the velocity of the supply chain up. And the closer the brand can be to the market, the better is the forecasting and there is much higher efficiency. Because in our business, the inefficiency leads to discounts and bleed. So the faster you are with the supply chain, you know, the better it is going to be for the entire value chain. I think the other big thing that I am seeing is that the material basket of fashion is becoming much more diverse. Like India especially used to be an extremely cotton intensive market from a product perspective. And I think honestly the future is of blended products with functionality. Because the MMF, what we call man-made, used to have this kind of stigma of not breathing and being a very dumb commodity product. In fact, the opposite is the case in the future, where, you know, nylon 66, hollow yarn polyesters, many of which even Reliance is now making, these inherent ingredients bring richness and functionality and durability to garments. So I'm seeing a huge change even in our brands. You know, in say US Polo, which is one of the leading polo brands in the country, it's a dramatic change of the product. I mean, I would not have imagined in 3 years the product we're selling today versus the product we sold 3 years ago. So I think in addition to speed, velocity, and data-intensive supply chain, the other piece is around how are we upgrading product? Because as Venkat was saying, the problem in our industry is commoditization. It's become completely me too. You remove the label of different brands, you won't even know which brand you're selling. So unless you really start bringing in the next level of innovation on product and upgrade the product, you're not going to survive as a brand because the middle is going to get hollowed out. Either you become premium and differentiated and you pivot up and really get loyalty of the customer, or you better be fast and very value and affordable so that you can deliver to the masses in the most efficient way. Anyone in the middle is going to disappear. So I think the whole fashion supply chain, both on the brand side and the manufacturer side, has to focus on the innovation and speed.
But on that last point that you raised, if I could just ask you to elaborate also, not just on prices, but also types of fabrics. So between formal versus casual, cotton rich versus blended, how do you see that evolving over time? Because what we're also noticing is that there are a lot of newbie brands, pun unintended, which are coming into the market, which tends to capture the customer's fancy. And they're all D2C at one point of time and now rapidly moving offline. And whereas there have been established brands in the market which are somewhere struggling to even maintain the same growth of the last quarter. So obviously there are some changes happening, not just in terms of prices, but also in terms of look, type, occasion of wear, all of that stuff.
Maybe I'll answer it in two ways. One, on this whole new age brands and what my read is of what they're doing very well. And your question on the product evolution. On the product evolution, as I mentioned, I think the whole evolution from formal to casual happened a decade ago. So I think the future is very much in casual wear. I think formal has become a small island, and formal brands are actually being forced into being more ceremonial occasion wear oriented brands because the formal market is really shrunk. Second, India is the most wovens intensive market in the world. We wear more shirts than anybody else in the world, right? The world has moved to knits, we are still in wovens. So I see a future where the knit component of our wardrobe is going to dramatically go up. And the third thing is on this cotton versus blends. I do believe that viscose, nylon and polyester blends are going to come into the wardrobe across product categories. Even in denim, we are seeing that tencel and various other fibers which bring softness and richness and luster are coming into denim. So I do believe the future is of blends rather than pure cotton. Now coming to your idea on D2C versus old world, I think that's maybe the wrong way to look at it. I think the brands that are being able to innovate and break through clutter are the ones winning, whether it is what you call traditional or new age. I don't think it's about the business model of new age. It's all about who is creating relevant product for the customer. And the one call out I would like to make is, I think the D2C brands have a very, very high capability on content-led commerce. And I think that is the bus traditional brands are missing out on. Because if you want to sell to the Gen Z, it's going to be a content-rich, digital-first strategy. That's a very different skill set. That's a layer that comes on top of product. I would actually rate product innovation with D2C brands on the minimal side. But I would think their content skill set and the way they have the conversation and engagement with the customer is where they are beating traditional business models hollow.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing those insights. Ashwin, a question to you, taking from your keynote address on thalis versus buffets. Okay. Obviously, there is a specific kind of customer who currently likes a thali, and there is another kind who likes a buffet. And we are looking for transformations for buffet customers to go to thali, hopefully, and for thali customers to change to buffet. If you were to look at, let's say, the customer buying intent. And I always say this, that when somebody transacts online, they transact. Which means they come in, they look for what they want to buy, they buy. And when they come into a store to buy, you know, the role of a store person is to assist them in their buying, which means that normally the basket tends to be larger than a transacting basket. And also, hopefully, we get a lot more insights from that transaction than what a online purchase is. So if you were to look at your own example, what you described, where do you see the market? I mean, it will be difficult to say it will be this way or that way, but what will be important to kind of describe is which set of customers are likely to change first, which kind of markets are likely to adopt new trends faster, and where do you think from the what you might define as the unorganized or the traditional sector, a lot of the people in the organized sector will actually benefit from in terms of, you know, transformation?
So this, this example why I give is very well thought, and it was a long discussion with the person who actually started the conversation, and it evolved. See, it is not about either or actually, okay? The same customer, the thali piece of it, when you look at, you go to a South Indian on the patte pe situation, right? At that time, there is no buffet actually. So it is neither either or. The same customer, when they go to that South Indian thing and they really relish that, and it was like, bahut maja aa gaya, that they will think in that parlance. And when you go to some other place which is serving the buffet, I mean, it is just the example we are talking. So I'm just trying to make the point that the customer is behaving differently in different scenarios. The offering and the kind of the commodity which is there, the kind of the product which is there. If it is a size, fit, etc., then also online has succeeded. There is return, of course, there is a problem on that. So the physical world exists and they have a lowest conversion risk in that scenario, that the customer is finding it there itself. Now the question there is that if you don't have the size, but the customer has liked the product, then can it be offered? It will reach you, actually you tried the size. So actually it is a entire ecosystem. You have to play everything actually. You cannot be just playing when you are playing cricket that I know only to play this way actually. So the organizations have to be agile and omni-channel. Of course, for years we have been talking about omni-channel actually. How omni-channel really modifies itself to this quick piece as well. As I said, whoever is nearest to the customer will be the winner actually. The product is the winner. The distance, yes, somebody is coming and putting 10 units around the catchment, and I can reach this one in 2 minutes, I can reach that one in 5 minutes. But then the customers are that many in the catchment, right? After a few days, some analysis came and we help you optimize on, somebody will come and advise you that we'll help you optimize on that. You don't need so many shops when you start making a loss and you don't see all your units actually doing the same volume of transaction. Then it will shrink back. Then it will say that will the customer need it in 10 minutes or 2 minutes or things like that. So it has to be a wave which has to be really, you have to be on top of it. You have to be in everything. You have to keep doing what the customer is telling you to do. At the same time, protect yourself by not overdoing it and doing it recklessly. Otherwise, the money gone in retail will not come back. Only investor can fund it something, but otherwise from that, whatever you made a loss is the loss actually. It is building you some kind of loyalty. The answer is yes and no, because whoever is offering at that time, somebody says, I'll just be at your doorstep and give it. Customer will switch on to that person, right? So customer in retail is really looking at their aspect of it. So the point is that there is no one answer actually. One has to be in both. So the physical world, there are specialists of the physical world. They have to really modify themselves in terms of saying that I will do this, and I will still give that same offering. in the geography where I am there, which is what omni-channel was, which is what you add on your delivery network in that manner, you optimize your speed, you optimize the connect with the customer, and you're back there actually, right? So ultimately, it is no one answer, I would say actually.
Let me just kind of give you a follow-on question to that. If you look at it from a business strategy perspective, there is a requirement to decide which strategy to bet on, which could be, there will be several ways in which you can reach the customer, either through store, online, within online, quick commerce, slotted commerce, all of that. The second part of it is how much do you want to bet on each strategy? Because in some cases, you will burn money in the beginning, but hopefully see money later. And in some cases, you can see immediate returns. So that's the second part of it. And then there is the third part of it is that organizationally, when you chase different strategies, how do you configure the organization to be able to actually chase these different things?
Yeah, so first, first coming to the strategy, okay? So let's take a physical store is there, and around the store, usually we have 20, 30,000 people who are in very close catchment of the store. Now, that 20,000 people, some will be such that they want to step out and they want to go see, they have time, they will want to shop, they come every day, alternate day, and that's their outing kind of a thing, right? Now, those are the customers, those will come to the store. There is a set of customers who will not come to the store. They are very savvy on the web side of it and the digital side of it. Now, those customers you would lose if you don't have that additional offering from your store, which is the quick offering or the home delivery offering kind of a thing, right? Now, instead of losing those customers, what it takes more? It takes more is to arrange a delivery to those customers in that quick manner as the customer is used to receiving that delivery, right? So you add on that layer. So what have you done? Out of the 20,000 customers, you have got both the best of both the worlds, right? So ultimately, the omni-channel, which we all as retailers like predicting and talking about it way years and years actually, that is there to stay because product is there. How you're reaching to the customer is just changing. The logistics of it is changing and the experience is changing. So instead of losing that customer, why not reach out to that customer as well, get best of both the worlds would be the strategy, right? That was the question, right? You had one more question.
And then organizationally, how do you structure?
Yeah, so organizationally, how do you structure is the person who is selling at the store has a specialization in putting the store in a particular manner. Your store manager and store processes are there. Exposing that inventory to the online channel or the visibility of the customer and mapping it with your technology and all of that, ring fencing it around the local geography is something which your tech and that piece of the organization has to be agile and they have to plug into that. And then there is the logistics and the last mile part of it, which is taking the add-on piece of it, that I am the specialist in ensuring the store manager left to himself, he will just call, how can he deliver actually? He doesn't have, he'll call a courier, he'll call some, just naming somebody who's good at it, maybe I believe is VFast. Somebody will just, if left to themselves, they'll just call a VFast and do that very inefficiently. But you really do it in a manner that you are doing it the most professional way, what a QCOM needs to operate. So you add that layer, then you scale it at across scale in all your geographies, then you've got the organizational strength of doing that in the best way. So every piece of the process, as we as retailers, as we as people who actually shape the modern trade, we would do it in that manner, that do it the best way, what it is required and plug it into the situation. Somewhere you may just need dark stores. So put up the dark stores where you need, where there is no customer who is looking for this physical part of it actually. Then you do only dark stores, right? So the combination of everything, don't miss out everything and do it the best way with the right skill set, team and the people and the technology will make you win is what we believe.
Sure. Thanks, Ashwin. Venkat, another question to you. in your business, you have both food and fashion. And obviously, the trends and challenges of both the sectors are very different. So, when you come to think about it, um, how do you see the consumer trends evolving in food versus the way it's evolving in fashion, like the way Kulin described in fashion?
They are indeed different, Bijou, and you're right to call it out. That said, there are some common threads. It's a bit like the Tata ecosystem. There are common threads, and each Tata company is different in its own way. The interesting piece is, if you're choosing to play to your strengths, I think it makes the point that Kulin made. How do you differentiate yourself a little easier? So let me, with that, build on that question that you're asking on fashion versus food. In the fashion space, we have chosen to do some things. For instance, we've said that, listen, we'll be able to address only a certain portion of the market. And we have been open about it. We have been hopefully consistent about it. We wanted to play the private label, own branded scheme, which is very different from being third-party branded. And it's not to say that there is not a market there. It's just to say that we wanted to play this game. Right? The second was, we are not present in terms of distribution. We are not present through any marketplaces. We are not distributed. For instance, many of your brands are actually distributed brands. You get much more reach. Even within our own ecosystem, if you take Titan, Titan as a watch business is actually, you've known the business very well, and it's a distributed business. So these are model level choices that businesses make and possibly should make, because there is a cultural element to how you organize yourself internally basis these choices. So I'm calling out two which is visible from the outside. There are multiple, obviously, which are not necessarily visible. And what we're trying to do in food is essentially take away gleans of what we think we are culturally attuned to. So we want to play with own brands in food as much. We want to not do third-party brands as much. We do not want it to be distributed. We do not want it to be marketing, advertising-led. We want it to be presence-led. So we're making very akin choices in terms of our playbook in food compared to what we have in fashion. And to Ashwin's point, yes, it means that we will not address customers, a certain pool of customers. And that's a choice. And we would probably have betting that if you differentiate yourself enough, you will be very relevant to a certain pool of customers who are seeking out a certain experience, certain proposition. And that, if you can constantly improve, you continue to remain relevant. So, for instance, in our Star business today, it's a relatively smaller business. That said, 70% of it is non-third party. We don't do very significant, because the majority used to be third party. Now majority is non-third party. Now, what it does is, you're restricting a whole bunch of customer pools who are seeking a much wider offering. So it's a choice. And in the case of food especially, Bijou, look at the scale of that business, the market. The market we're talking about is, depending on the report that you pick, I think it's anywhere between 500, 600, 700 billion dollars. And it's growing. It's not stopped growing either. So it's just enormous. So our bet is, like in most international markets, there are going to be multiple models that will work. And we can see that in developed markets. There are multiple models that work. And quick commerce will be successful, especially given what's happened to India in the last year and a half. But it's a model. E-commerce possibly has its own space. Modern trade has its own space. And kiranas have their own space. So it's not A versus B versus C, but A and B and C and D. And in reality, there will be multiple players who are successful with multiple models. So maybe a Reliance will be with multiple models and multiple spaces, whereas maybe players like us are going to be a model with a brand which is successful, or at least that's the bet. You can say, Venkat, you're biased, and I would agree.
So that's a wonderful set of, if I were to say, last words, which is, you must be clear about the purpose of your business. once you clear about the purpose of your business, if I were to borrow from Venkat's uh, words, it is about making sure that you then play that to the hilt. And it's not about playing many things, but it's about playing one thing, what you believe in. Maybe you will play many things if you're a Reliance Retail because that's the way you believe in it. So that is the purpose of their business. Whereas in the case of Trent, it has always been food and fashion, and they have focused specifically on that. And they have specifically focused on making sure that they give you a great store experience, which is very different from somebody wanting to do it online. So I think, every business tends to kind of craft for itself its own purpose and then decides the balance between internal, external to the customer, external to other stakeholders, as well as what you leave on the table as far as the shareholders go. So can we have some questions from the audience? Anybody wanting to ask any questions? If you want, raise your hand, state your name, ask the question and address the person to whom you want to ask the question.
Hi, good morning. I'm Vikram Botra and representing the most beautiful part of India, the Northeast. And this is a question to Kulin. I was just listening to Kulin and, you talked about commoditization in fashion. I come from the same industry. Just wanted to understand, and I was a little curious, that what are the factors which are pushing it up? And is it very good for future in fashion that commoditization would lead something very innovative, or it would be a little not very okay in future? What's your take on that?
No, I actually think that's one of the biggest challenges in our business because as we discussed earlier, if you are just copying each other, then you are not really creating customer love, right? And if that happens, the result of that is the customer can shop from anybody. And the power you are giving to the customer then, and you are only selling based on price. So I think that's the slippery slope this business is going down. That if you can't really hold a value with the customer, then you are fighting on price. And in India, there is enough and more competition and supply. The global majors have all come in. So unless you really differentiate, and honestly, innovation is not simple. To be able to work hard to create a breakthrough product in fashion is not simple. We've been even producing for the best brands in the world. We have a engine which kind of tries to create innovation for the biggest brands in the world. These are billion-euro brands, billion-dollar brands. Even there, for the teams to come up with something genuinely exciting and breakthrough is not easy. It sometimes takes us, we did something once with the Gap, that product, it took us a year and a half to create that dual FX product. So, it's simple to say, create newness and innovation, but it's very hard to do. And what happens in life is when you are trying to deliver numbers, top line, bottom line, dhanda, LTL, expansion, you end up focusing on efficiency and growth. And this business, I truly believe the fashion business is all about product. Everything else is embellishment. If you don't get the product right, no matter how good your business model is, you're going to fall flat on your face. So how do you really create a product engine? Like something as simple as what you were saying. If he has a design center in the UK, those girls who are seeing ASOS, who are seeing Boohoo, who are seeing the latest styles, will have a different view on how to design women's western wear than the graduates who are coming out of NIF because they don't have the same exposure. So you're going to get an output which is very different from a design team sitting in Bangalore or Noida. So sometimes it's about putting capital, focus and investments behind how do you really create a differentiated product. We are working very hard to now go into the next level of vendor base across the world which are doing innovation on fabric, because when I bring that into my polo, India will see it for the first time. So that's what I mean. I mean, it's not easy to do this in fashion, getting great, and it's a treadmill. You may be great this season. If you lose the mojo, You get someone who doesn't understand product, and we have had this example in our company. Brands which are dominant become laggards within 5 years. So fashion is a tough business.
Thank you. I can see Hugo standing and waiting to come up. Signs come up.